No.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, yikes, scared myself.
So many, oh, okay, so many.
Thanks. So let's see, we have guests this morning. We have Elena. We have Officer Matt and Officer Duke, who will be speaking to us very soon. Hopefully just one of them. And although he's not a guest, we all want to welcome Howard Novak back. We have missed you, Howard. I'm so glad you're back. And I made sure to introduce you when your mouth was full. So Elizabeth's going to give us our Rotary moment this morning.
So I was inspired because I just got to confirm 3 kids to go to RILA. So, and so I'm really excited to get more kids involved in leadership and service and stuff like that. And then I was flipping through this month's Rotary magazine and it was talking about Interact, which is the Rotary youth group. And it turned 60 this year. And I like the beginning quote in the bold. It says, "To change the world, start young." And that's something that I've always believed in. My first career was as an educator. Well, I still am, but as an actual teacher, I have that degree too. So it was really interesting just flipping through this. It's a timeline of Interact groups. And I don't know where there is an Interact group because it's like the teenager version of what we do from what I understand. And I don't think there's one here, which I think would be interesting to start. But yeah, Interact started in 1962. Originally, it was just 15 to 18-year-old boys. In 1967, they said that maybe girls can do it too. Now they accept kids as young as 12. So 12 to 18-year-olds can do Interact groups, and they have all kinds of things that they've been up to, like typhoon relief in the Philippines and stem cell donation awareness in California, coastline cleanup in Taiwan. So they're doing all kinds of neat projects around the world. And I think RILA is a good place to start with getting kids involved or bringing them to the meeting, obviously. But really happy that after last year not sending any kids to RILA, this year we're sending 3 confirmed for sure. So keeping kids involved in service and community, I think, is the best way to create the next generation. Thanks.
And Elizabeth, just so you know, back when Deb Beckett was with us, she and I went to the high school for a, there was some kind of a day in the gymnasium, and different groups came and had booths, and we brought ours. Turns out there, at least at our high school here, there are so many groups, Key Club and a bunch of other groups, that they weren't particularly interested in trying to start yet another group. Doesn't mean we couldn't revisit it, but it was on our radar screen. So Dan's going to give us an inspiration today.
So this time of year, we always see everything being reborn. And so I thought I'd provide some inspiration from a couple of people that were born on May 11th. So first is Salvador Dali, or Dali. He was born in 1904 on May 11th, and he died in 89. So he lived to be 85 years old. He's a Spanish artist, and you remember he was the guy who had the melting clocks. He was in the surreal movement. And he said, have no fear of perfection. You'll never reach it. So when I was, leading teams, I always preached, Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, because it's very easy to get frozen and trying to do something perfect. And we can always make improvements from wherever we are. So another person born on May 11th is Irving Berlin. He was born on May 11th, 1888. And he died in 1989, same day or same year as Salvador Dali. So Irving Berlin, you remember well, maybe you don't remember, but he was a great songwriter. He actually was born in Russia, emigrated to the United States as a child. And he wrote a lot of timeless classics such as White Christmas and God Bless America and Cheek to Cheek. So anyway, Irving Berlin said, life is 10% what you make it and 90% how you take it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. That was great. So I'd like to invite Chris to come up here. We are adding yet another new member to this club. And another Chris. Chris Burns DiBiasio.
Yes,
Did I do it?
did.
Has been a Rotarian in the past in Ohio. So Rotary itself is not new to her. We are, but Rotary is not. Chris, here's your oh so fashionable hat.
Oh, sure.
And your pin should be in here.
Okay.
And welcome to the
Thank you very
Williston-Richmond
much.
Rotary.
I was very pleased to be here. Everybody's been so welcoming. It was fun with the service activity this Saturday, and I think I got to meet a lot of you, and I'll meet many more. So thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Chris. Yeah.
Baseball caps. Not of the Guardian fan, not Sovereigns. So we'll say,
Okay, come back here. Chris, come back. They have to take our picture.
okay.
Also doing the hat.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, I'm not putting my hat on. Oh, goodness, baseball cap.
Never had a Rotary hat. I've had shirts and sweatshirts, but never a hat.
And this one says Williston-Richmond.
There you go. Thanks.
Thanks. All right. Just a couple of quick messages. We are hoping that everybody who gets financial donations for the fundraising event will give thank you notes to your donors. We're coming up with a form letter in which you can put the name of your donor and how much money they've given. This is so that for tax purposes, they'll have a record. So when that's done, we'll see that you get it. This is another challenge. So those of you who've been speaker chairs for a whole month or for one speaker need to figure out the name and address of your speaker, because we're going to send thank you notes. The mentoring kids are writing thank you notes because we're giving money to the mentoring program for the speakers. And so we have to be able to send those to your speakers. So see what you can do to come up with addresses. Sherry, did you have something else you want?
That what we were working on for the thank yous.
Right, those are the thank yous.
It's just like what I was gonna do, is just we have the thank you card. And then I was going to, just put on the inside of a handwritten thank you, this little piece of paper. And it just says, thank you for your donation to the Williston Rotary Club Charities, Inc. I got it correct finally, Phil, for the amount, and we write in the amount. We are a 501c3, and it has our EIN, our tax exempt number on, because some of the businesses need that information, right? And it might be easier for them to keep track of a card versus another 8.5 by 11 piece of paper throughout the year, and
So I think we'll make it an option, either this or the form letter, whichever people prefer.
and get that information in there. for
Okay.
them.
Yes, Vince.
Just to add, when you're getting addresses, it would also be helpful to get their email.
Okay.
And when you get their email, we can also add them to the bulletin.
Oh, good. Okay, that's a great idea. Good. And so Susan is going to introduce our speaker. I told Matt that I was going to put out a chair for Duke because Duke likes to sit in chairs.
One quick announcement before introducing our speaker. I am going to pass around a speaker chair sign-up list for our coming Rotary year starting in July. So I encourage anyone to sign up. And even if you're not sure, you can come up with 3 or 4 speakers for a month. Remember that other people will have ideas that they might share with you. So don't be afraid to give it a try. All right, well, without further ado, I'm really pleased to welcome our 2 guest speakers today, Officer Matt and Officer K-9 Duke. The Williston Police Department became the first police department to develop a comfort dog program in the state of Vermont. When K-9 Duke was adopted to the force in the May of 2020, a comfort dog is not a traditional police canine. Duke does not chase bad guys. His job is to help victims and witnesses through traumatic events and increase positive communication between investigators and the public. Officer Matt Cohen is a veteran officer at the Williston Police Department. He started his career in 2010 after graduating college with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Officer Matt has always loved working with and training dogs. When the opportunity came to pilot the Comfort Dog program, Officer Matt jumped at the chance to work with Duke.
Hello, thank you. Coming up. Sit. Stay. Good morning, everybody. I should have to stand over here, I guess, to be on Zoom. I usually like to float around and move around, so I'm not used to standing up here in one spot. So bear with me, I might move around a little bit for you. Sorry, Vince. I do a PowerPoint that I set up so people online can understand, but kind of what I did, I kind of started this PowerPoint back in 2020 when this program first started. I've kind of been adding to it, adjusting it as we go. There's some wordiness to it that I don't really like, but unfortunately I had to do it because of my needs. But I'm gonna start the PowerPoint. Share my screen. So you guys know me. That's this is about the program. Hopefully, is it working? A little delay. All right. So I won't go so fast. This program has a lot of information to it over the past few years. I've gained a ton of information, ton of stories that I can't share. Ton of details on because a lot of what we do is some confidential information because we work with a lot of mental health patients. However, I have tons of stories of how Duke has brought comfort and joy and helped us in the police world eliminate the need for some like use of force situations and need of other mental health professionals coming in by just having him present with us. If you see some pictures going on or you have some questions, please let me know because I will tell some stories as best as I can with a limited amount of details I can share. But our program really got going in 2019. We started, a lieutenant of ours went down to a training in Massachusetts where comfort dogs were fairly common down in Mass. He came back and said, this is a really cool program. I'd really like to bring it to Vermont. And being that from Williston was very supportive of the idea, our select board, you're slipping a little bit. He's slipping on his chair, but he'll stay there. He said, who might be interested in this? And I was like, I'd be interested in running a canine program. Had no idea what a comfort dog was. No idea. I was like, a dog? Yes, I'm in. So started researching with him, making up a proposal with the town. We went through the whole process and then COVID hit. And we were like, uh-oh. But we were already committed by that point. We said, we got to go. So COVID was going. Did I lose my connection? Wasn't you? So we started the program and we said we're going. We had Duke was donated to us by Boonfield Labradors. They're out of southern New Hampshire, and they've actually come into this niche market of, I am going to give dogs 1 per litter to programs across the country. And so they have now donated he was number 11 out of that group, and they've now done 33 or 34. It's hard to keep track. This, so but it's 1 a litter, and they specifically breed therapy dogs, and one of their dogs gets donated to either police department, a service, mental health services, or schools. Let's see. Where else can I go with telling, with make sure, I want to make sure I hit everything on my slide here. For those who don't know what a comfort dog program is, or a therapy dog would, when in the police world, we use them to help victims of trauma. So this could be sexual assault victims, it could be domestic abuse victims, it could be child abuse victims, car crashes, could be, you know, any traumatic event. And trauma comes in so many different ways, shapes, and forms that, and each individual person might feel a traumatic event from something that someone else might feel like this should be mundane. So we can't pinhole who, when, where we might be needed. There might be somebody who's just really upset and affected by whatever they just dealt with, or whatever just happened to them. And that's where we come in. We'll come into a situation where another officer says, hey, I have someone who's really upset. They like dogs. I think you can come in and help. And we will come into the interview process. So when it's time for us to sit down with somebody and say, what happened? What is going on today? That can cause PTSD, especially someone who's experienced true trauma. And when we sit down with Duke, we're less likely to trigger a PTSD moment. And we sit down with our victims, we'll sit down with the people, our witnesses who've experienced this, and they can tell their story to us. And there's really great science behind this. About 2007, there was a study done out in Arizona where therapy dogs were used in child forensic interviews. And child forensic interviews have a ton of rules. Like we can't do a lot. Child has to be really open and be able to discuss. We can't ask questions. Like there's tons and tons of rules. So if we're in a child forensic interview and the child doesn't want to talk, the bad guy gets away. So what's happening is about 30% of the time, children were talking to police because we're big, scary policemen. We try to do our best to with children to settle down and get like dressed like more like me, more in plain clothes, so people are, but still children are afraid. So they're only really telling us when something was happening about 30% of the time. They brought therapy dogs in. Guess how much the increase went? Higher than it went up to 83%. 83% of the time with the therapy dog, the children was disclosing something. Doesn't mean that a crime was committed, but they were talking. And if we got them talking, we then get the information we need. So that was a big push to get therapy dogs in policing. Since then, therapy dogs have been taken over across the country. Duke was the first one in Vermont. There's one more now up in Maple. There's been a couple of programs that's been trying to start up, and they do, for whatever reason, can't. COVID was a big piece of that. Let's see. I think my next slide, because my computer's not working apparently, but I think my next slide is about me. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I've been with the police department here at Williston for almost 14 years. I'll be 14 this summer. I started right out of college, went to college for criminal justice. I knew I wanted to be a police officer. I knew I wanted to help people, go out and do, drive fast, shoot guns. No, no, I had a mentor back when I was in high school going through a hard time, who was an officer, and I kind of modeled my life after him, which good, for better or worse, that's where I am. And so I knew I was going to want to be in policing. You can go to the next slide if I think it's loading. Okay. And so I knew I wanted to be an officer and come into policing. So I set my career path that way. Wilson snagged me up during a time where actually it was hard to get a police job. There was, I was one of a couple hundred applicants for Williston alone. Now, right today, we can't get anyone to apply. So I think that's a much different way. I was applying all over the East Coast. It was, and Wilson was the one to snag me up. Better or worse, they got me now. And so, I've been through a ton of different trainings in Williston. Wilson's been really great for me and for this, for different trainings and different roles I get to have inside our department. I always loved training dogs. I had one of my own dogs before Duke, which I trained with to do a lot. Duke's, he's trying to settle on the chair and he's getting uncomfortable. All right, you can get off. Let's go. You can go down. I was trying to get him to settle, but he go lay down. Down. Good boy. But so where am I with my slides? I don't know. All right, this is not working. At least it'll keep me on task.
Just the connection.
Is it?
We never have a problem. I don't understand.
Well, so my computer's running off of cell phone service, and we're in the middle of Williston, there's no cell phone service. Yeah. So one of the roles with Comfort Dogs, I've explained, like, we do the trauma piece, but we have so many other avenues that we go into. We do help with trial testimony, because you got to remember these people have to testify. Not only they don't tell the story, not only to us and during the interview process, at least once to the attorneys when it gets down to the attorneys, usually twice, because the defense and the prosecution will need them to talk to each of them, and then go on the stand and tell the jury, the judge and jury. So we actually support a victim from the time we enter their case all the way through the trial process. We were actually at the federal trial for that kidnapping rape case and supporting the victims of those. Another piece, critical mental health piece, so critical incidents, we consider it something that's traumatic for us to handle. And these could be, use of force, like you saw on the news the other day where 2 of our officers got bit. That's a critical incident for us. We'll come in and help our staff, and we'll help our staff process what happens, get some stress relief. And this could be even in the middle of a workday. So we have guys who will come into our office, sit down for 5 minutes, pet Duke or play fetch with him, get that stress relief out, and then go back onto shift. Helps out, when we get rid of our stress, we're in a healthy way, helps us out as first responders. So we'll go to our police department, the dispatch centers, the fire departments, and we'll actually go to around our surrounding communities as well. Especially if something major happens. School support, we are in and out of our schools all the time. They call us all the time to come help with different situations with dealing with children. Sometimes it's children who just need extra love that day. Sometimes it's just saying good morning as we walk through the classrooms or through the hallways. That's a very rewarding part of my day, I'll tell you, because not very often as a police officer you get to see people like, yeah, you're here. And that's one that they're like, you're here, Duke's here. That's actually a very rewarding part of my day. We do a lot of community relations. So Duke has helped us bridge a lot of our gaps, like when I'm talking to you guys. And we've noticed one of our weaknesses in our department prior to Duke was we didn't have a lot of community events that we were attending to interact with our public in a positive way. So his program helps us bridge and fill that need and that gap. So we do a lot of community events. We'll get invited to different community events throughout, and we'll come, or we'll actually host our own. We're hosting Petra Truck at the end of August, and that's going to be one of our big events. The other one that we host is Kisses for a Cause. It's a kissing booth right before Valentine's Day, and actually that kicks off a food drive. So that's one of the two big events that we host, and then we will be at other community events. And the last one is our Community Justice Center. Do you guys know what that is? So our Community Justice Center has been pretty much in existence since I started, and I've been a big part of their program. But we will go into community justice meetings. Again, COVID has kind of put a little hiccup on that, but they finally got back in person. We started going back into their meetings as well to support them when they have offenders who are coming in who need to make repairs, sometimes it's really hard to say that you've done something wrong. And some people break down afterwards because they've gotten to that point of like, I really did something truly wrong. And to have a non-biased support of this is just a dog who wants to say hi and get pets, it really helps build their it helps build a lot of their self-esteem back up. My next slide is deployments. Basically, what for 2022, I didn't really, not a huge big deal, but it's just we did 140 cases with Duke last year. 18 of which were for some sort of traumatic or emergency response. So I did pull some of our notable cases from last year. We actually went to New Hampshire for one. A school resource officer in Hillsborough, New Hampshire, passed away on the job from a heart attack. And so we went in a day after to the school to help the school with grief support. They called for dogs from all over New England, and we set up a schedule. So 2 or 3 dogs were there for an entire week. And so we went in, we worked with them. Another one that we went to was this domestic assault case, where the victim already had PTSD, already had anxiety disorders from past trauma. They got into an argument with their spouse or a significant other, and it triggered all those responses. So we had no information from what happened during Duke. He mosey's, and I just have to make sure you get him back over here. So we had no information from the victim because she wasn't able to talk to us. She was in this place of absolute back at this, her past trauma, wasn't able to talk, wasn't able to discuss what happened today because she was still focusing on what happened in her past. We actually went up to the hospital. She got transported to the hospital pretty quickly. We went up with her and met in the hospital room, did an interview with her. At one point, she didn't really want to talk to Duke, right? She didn't really want, she was like, wasn't really all for it. And but she started talking, we started getting her to discuss what was happening. And all of a sudden she shuts down, stops talking, starts crying, not able to continue. And I was like, all right, I recognize this response. I got the dog. I brought him up onto her gurney, sat down, just said, start petting him, start saying hi, start petting him. She does. He does what he's supposed to do. He's been trained, his training, he starts kicking in and he starts leaning into her more, now going up onto her lap. Finally, he's got across her lap and starts licking her face because he's recognizing the trauma that she's not here. She's not focused. He gets her attention focused back on him. We're able to, she starts actually laughing because he's getting licked in the face by a dog. Resets that whole interview and we're able to continue. And she no longer went to the past and we were able to determine what actually happened that night. So that was one of my great responses from last year I can go into. I have a couple others, but I don't think I want to utilize our time like that. So I have questions. And the last thing is really our donors. This program is run completely by community donations. So Duke was donated to us by Bloomfield Labradors. Thin Blue Line Cannon, who's unfortunately has moved out of town, but has donated all his training hours prior to them moving out. So for professional training. Mountain View Animal Hospital gives us veterinary services for the first year it was free and now it's a reduced cost. Duke and Guy's Farm Yard gives us tons and tons of food, treats, toys, free of cost. It's great. We go in there. So we really love Guy's Farm Yard. Please support them. I don't want them to go away. And Community Bank was actually one of our big donors early on to get our program up and running. So I always like to thank my donors. And if we continue to take community support, we do fundraisers to keep his program up and running. Like right now, the sweatshirts for sale for Duke that all the money goes back into little stuffed animals that we actually give one of the stuffed animals back to a victim if we work with. So they have it anytime they might need. So hopefully we imprint a positive on there, so if they need to, that memory of the positive. And Duke actually has a storybook out. You haven't heard about it. That's on Amazon. Training, just some people ask what training do we go through to get a therapy dog. He's just like every civilian therapy dog training. You go through AKC Canine Good Citizen, Alliance of Therapy Dogs, and get certified with their services. We also added AKC Urban Canine, which is just another step in training and certification process. Says he's able to go up and down different places. Like this is like the uniform access for service dogs. We also took one more step. We went out to Franklin County, Ohio, and they actually host a police therapy dog. They were the third department in the country to make a therapy dog program, and they actually host once a year a police therapy dog training that departments with new dogs would come in. So they put them in really specific police situations like helicopters, drones, around guns and shooting, sirens. That so that these dogs are training with these things that we will have to see in the police world at any given moment. So those are some of our trainings that we've been to, the bigger ones. But typically, as far as the training goes, it's just like you would for a civilian dog, but we just change what the therapy is being used for. So we're not going into nursing homes and help or hospitals as much. We're just focusing that same stats and the same good grace that dogs bring in into the police world. And now I think I can open up for questions. Yes.
So as far as perpetrators, like, do you ever use them to maybe help get them to talk?
So yes and no. I've done it once and it actually worked. But only there was mental health involved in that case too, where the person had mental health problems. I don't know how to word it more better than that, but had committed a pretty egregious assault. And during the interview with that individual, Duke and I were there because it was my case, and he's with me all the time. So it's my case. He was there, and when the person started actually confessed to what their actual crime was, what they were actually doing, they broke down, and that's what Duke was there to help support them. But typically, no, it's not something we do as a typical. It happened once, but with this program, it's because it's new. We kind of been able to mold it however we see a need for it. So if we've said we think that a dog might be good here, we said, okay, let's try it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, what do we lose?
You have to wonder, right?
Right.
If somebody is chilled enough, depending on what they did, but you can just see that if they come down from their high,
yeah.
that, you might get something out of them.
Yes. And I don't know how that would play out in court either, if it's coerced or not. This is more of a support of after they were crying, after they've confessed, to help bring them back up. That's why I was saying in the criminal justice center, community justice center, he does help in that scenario where they've already been through the court process, but now they have to discuss what happened as part of their process and why they did it. Sometimes that will actually cause people to become upset and cry, and we can come in and support them after that. Question?
Yeah, I actually have two questions.
Yeah.
One, the easy question is, have you ever been afraid for his safety?
So no, that's one of the pieces of his program. He's considered a secondary responder. So I'm a first responder. I go first. He doesn't come until I know it's relatively safe. And typically, a lot of times it's a discussion with whoever I'm going to bring up. Hey, do you like dogs? Are you going to be safe with my dog? And I've had some patients, and typically mental health related, where it's they're in a really emotional state and they can't regulate. But if I say if you need to be safe with my dog, it helps bring them. They already say, I need to bring myself back down because I want to see the dog. And so it helps reduce some of those needs for us where we might actually end up going hands-on with someone in that high emotional state because they make a choice to go hands-on with us. It helps eliminate that need, and it's worked a ton. I can't tell you how many times we've been out where it's somebody in a mental health state, and I said, hey, I have this dog. Do you like dogs? You can come say hi. We can come talk, but I need you to be safe. And they self-regulate themselves because they want to see the dog.
So the other question is, this is rare, it's only happened maybe once, but at the food shop, we have a number of customers that have mental health issues.
Mhm.
Some have addiction issues. And so I'm in charge of the volunteers and I want to keep my volunteers safe at all times. And so my question to you is, if we had a customer who was acting out, and we have a policy that if the shift leader is afraid for themselves or the other customers, they can call the police.
Mhm.
Who makes the decision whether to actually bring the police or you?
So, great question. It really depends on staffing who's on. So I am the police, right?
Right.
So it depends. I go on normal patrol. Most days I am in full uniform, out in patrol on my patrol car. He's in the back, and we are doing our patrol function. And at a moment's notice, depending on what call comes in, we can pivot back to either the community therapy dog piece, or I pivot back to the patrol piece where I respond to the call. That being said, we've all had training and help de-escalate mental health patients, help bring peace. I always tell people it's better to call us and not have needed us, because our presence alone sometimes is the deterring factor that calms people down. And we get this a lot of times with verbal arguments between couples or between family members. Like, I didn't want to call the police. I don't want to have this happen. I don't want you here. Like, I understand you didn't want to call us, but you did. And look, nobody's yelling. Nobody's up. We're all upset. You're all upset right now, but nobody's yelling, and we're able to work through whatever the problem is. So I always say it's better sometimes to call us and not need us than to have not called us and needed us.
Well, your phone numbers aren't board.
Call it. Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for your 13 years of service to the town of Williston and for bringing Duke into our community. I hope that you will stay in Williston, retire in Williston, and be safe.
I know you got to tell us but treat us nice, okay?
The length of time that you serve, I know from other therapy, not therapy dogs, service dogs, it's exhausting work for them.
Right.
And so about how long will he be in service before he retires?
So that's a great question, honestly. There's no set timeline with therapy dogs because, again, this is new. Typically you'd see, like what you're saying, patrol dogs or detection dogs, they are between 7 to 8 years, 9 years. It's kind of like their work life. He might go a little bit longer because his needs are different, and the needs for what he has to do are different. It is exhausting for him. Like being in a room like this and behaving and doing what he's supposed to do is exhausting for him. Like he gets to a point where he's like, I'm out, I'm done. He is sleeping now. And he's also used to me being up and talking to people and him and settling down and hanging out. A lot of times when I go into classrooms, I actually put him in a stay somewhere outside the way because some kids are afraid of dogs. I don't want him wandering around, but I like to wander around. So I like to move and go flow through a room. So you have to watch me to make sure you're not sleeping. And especially in classrooms. So I actually will have kids in small groups come up to him. So that way, if they feel comfortable, they come up for a small group, say hi, and then come back. And he'll be hanging out on the floor while I'm walking around the classroom. So he's very used to hanging out on the floor while I'm talking to people. Apparently I keep talking. But yeah, as far as his service life, we're guessing about 10 years. Basically, if he can't get in and out of the cruiser, that's going to be the biggest question of, can he get in and out of the car by himself?
Thank you. Does he live with you, and can anyone else use him in the department?
So yes, he lives with me. He's part of my family. He's with me 24/7. Fully engrossed in our lives. I have to make sure I leave him home alone every once in a while because otherwise he'd be with me all the time. And it's not good for the dog. He actually needs to be, time to chill at home and time to be alone. I actually make sure one of the trainings is like, I'll take my other dog out and leave Duke home for like an hour or two, just so he's used to being home alone. It's just good for dogs. So he can have a healthy life for his whole life. But that being said, and then asking if can he be utilized by another officer? Typically not. We bond him to a handler. And you'll see he likes a bunch of our officers because they feed him tons and tons of treats. But he only listens to me. Like some people, he'll do tricks for other people, but when I say it's time to go, it's time to go. Like if I say we're working.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does he pick up on your stress, like if you're driving to an incident, and because I'm sure part of your training is you're gonna get stressed, there's no way to deny it. Does he pick up on that at all?
He does all the time, and sometimes he picks up on it before I do. So, and it might not be I usually find it at home when I'm stressed out at home, and he will come up and like lean right into my side and won't leave me. I'm like, okay, I'm stressed. Like, he will tell me I'm stressed and I won't even recognize it sometimes. So yes, he does pick up on my stress and my anxieties that I have. So, but he also is if you learn to read he's a really good like touchstone of where your mood is at too that day. He'll tell me.
There any things that you are not supposed to or can't do with him because of his therapy status? Like, is there things that he's not supposed to do as a therapy dog because it somehow can affect his training or his behavior,
There are a lot of rules that Alliance of Therapy Dogs that we fall under their umbrella ask me to follow. Part of it is like, don't let him lick people. I try to tell him not to, but that's one of the rules, and that's more of a liability standpoint. They don't want with the therapy work, they don't want dog faces near human faces. Less likely to have a bite or an incident because of that. But also handlers know their dogs, so I know if he's sniffing, I'll try to pull him away before he licks because he'll lick. He's not supposed to, but these are some of the rules. As far as like training rules or things like that, is that
okay, so don't bring him to a dog park because that could, I'm just like as an example. Activities that he's not really supposed to do based on his role.
no drug sniffing. No, we don't do anything criminal related. So, and that's mainly because we don't want to mix the people's comfort levels. So if they had been using drugs or they had been around something that they're not supposed to be around, we want to still be comfortable with us. So he's not going to be out doing sniffs for drugs. We're not going to be out tracking criminals because he could do human scent tracking. I've actually thrown that in as a backup plan because it's just another tool in my tool chest, and he loves doing. His nose is great. He loves doing it, and it's just a fun training exercise for us. So if we have a lost child or a lost patient, great, we'll go find them. But we're not going to be tracking down criminals because we don't want to put them at high risk. So those pieces of the puzzles, yes, there's some things that we don't want to do just because of either risk but I don't think, from my trainer, Tom, he said, if it's a task that you can train it, because it just gives the dog another tool in their tool chest, another way to change up your training. Because let's face it, if I just do sit down, stay over and over again for hours, it's boring. It's boring for him. It's boring for me. we do different trainings in different places. I like going to all sorts of different scenarios. So like in or out of our stores, in and out of like Church Street Marketplace, or walking a bike path. We never know what you're going to come across. Those are always great for training.
Is that breed the predominant one that all these police departments are using?
So no, any dog can be a therapy dog. That's the one thing about this piece in the police world, that any dog really can be a therapy dog. We can have, there's poodles, there's, what else? German shepherds, but not as much as you think. There are some, but police departments have been trying to stay away from your stereotypical police dog because people associate those with criminal apprehension. But labs, Goldens, like any of your all-American family dogs, as long as their temperament works and the training works, they've been said, let's bring them in. Portuguese water dogs for some reason. I was like, I don't know, but they seem to do really well with their therapy dogs. And in the systems. What else do I see? But I do see a lot of labs. I do see a lot of like your Goldens, your generic Wheaton Terriers now. Yes, Australian Shepherds are out. But yeah, it's pretty much any dog can do it, just need the right temperament.
When the people pick the one out of the litter,
Mhm.
I'm assuming that they have some sort of sense of certain personalities that a dog has when they choose one.
Yes, they do. They are really experts in their field and their dogs, particularly their dogs, because like I've had questions of like, what is this that's come up? Like he had marks underneath his chin the first when he's like 6-7 months old. I'm like, what is this? I sent a picture to Peggy, who's the breeder, and she's like, oh, that's just pimples. That's juvenile pimples. I'm like, okay, I never knew dogs got pimples, but but they've been really, really great people to work with, and they did pick, and they knew that he was going to be a good match for what they were going to. They actually had 2 dogs in mind. The way it worked was the stud dog got the first pick of the litter, so they get 1 dog from the pick to add to their household, and so they had it down to 2 dogs, and they said, whichever one the stud dog owner doesn't pick, the other one's going to Williston.
Great, thank you so much.
Yes, I know, I'm probably done with time. Ready?
So Susan?
So thank you, especially for coming on your day off. So thank you and thank you for speaking with us. We should see that.
Oh, thank you very much.
Few things I have. Take the ticket and read the last 3.